The World Design Capital Program is a designation that's awarded by the World Design Organization every 2 years. It began in 2008 in Torino, Italy. And as you can see in this map, it has traveled the world every 2 years for different cities. And as you can also see from this map, San Diego is the first American US city to be awarded the designation. And we are the first cross-border region, San Diego and Tijuana together, to be assigned the designation. So that makes us quite unique. We're also, even though San Diego and Tijuana are the host cities, we're looking at the larger region, which actually ties into the map of the Kumeyaay Nation and how this bioregion works in terms of topography and water and the ocean and the sky that connects us. The 5 partners of World Design Capital are UC San Diego and the Design Lab, Design Forward Alliance, the Bernard Center for Community Advancement, the City of San Diego, and the City of Tijuana. I came into the project in July of last year, and a couple of months after that, we got the opportunity to visit Valencia in September, and then again in November. Valencia was World Design Capital in 2022. You can see here that Mayor Montserrat Caballero for Tijuana was able to join us there. The Mayor of Valencia was our host, and Council Member Raúl Campillo was able to go on behalf of Mayor Todd Gloria. And what happened in Valencia is 2 things. We saw, well, many things, but 2 important ones. We saw what a city could do with a designation like World Design Capital, and how to do it well and how to take advantage of it to generate very positive impact in the city, not only in the year of the designation, but towards the future. So we learned in Valencia that World Design Capital is just the beginning. It's not just a series of events in 2024, but it's how do we take advantage of this platform to generate positive change in the future. So the 7 focus areas that we are organizing our program around are climate and the natural world, design, arts and culture, education, health and well-being, housing and transportation, innovation, science and technology, and social equity and justice. We have also created 4 groups that are helping us bring this program to reality. We have an advisory board with people like Mary Walshock and others participating there. We have a design council with designers from both sides of the border, making sure that design is front and center in everything that we do. We have a Tijuana council in order to make sure that Tijuana has a voice in the planning and the implementation of the program. And we are putting together a youth council, because if we're talking about designing a better future, we want the voices of the very rich and diverse community of young people in the region to participate as well. So this is something they did in Helsinki in 2012. They created a pavilion, which wasn't a requirement then by the World Design Organization, where people would gather and they had exhibitions, lectures, book presentations, etc. Mexico City replicated this in 2018. That date is wrong. I need to correct it. And then Valencia did this amazing structure in 2022. Again, Valencia is a very different place to San Diego and Tijuana, but there's a lot to learn from what they did. They designed and built this structure in the middle of the plaza. And if you can imagine this plaza at 11 at night, there's grandparents with their grandchildren, there's couples, there's kids riding their bikes. There's activity, there's life. And this structure helped activate that and complement it with events that had to do with World Design Capital. This is an example of or a photograph of how it looked from the inside. So the element of a pavilion is also very important and something that we need to deliver to the World Design Organization. Now, in our region and in our reality, we are fortunate to have UC San Diego Park and Market as our home, as our office, and also as a space that connects us to Tijuana with the trolley, also to the main campus at UCSD with the Blue Line. But it also, if you've been to this building, it's very versatile and very flexible. And we have a theater, a cinema, exhibition space, gathering spaces, etc. So we're using Park and Market as our hub, as our main pavilion, but also understanding that we have a larger opportunity to do a network of pavilions in the region. So we have an agreement with the Museum of Contemporary Art of San Diego downtown to use their space, and other cultural institutions on both sides of the border are helping us weave that network of spaces together. As for the calendar of events, we have 7 signature events that we need to deliver to the World Design Organization. The first is the signing ceremony that's happening here at Park and Market at the end of this month. Then we have the Design Spotlight, which instead of doing one event, we're doing a monthly lecture series throughout 2024, inviting designers from around the world and thought leaders from around the world to come to San Diego and Tijuana so we can learn from them. And at the same time, we're going to have a communications platform where we tell the story of our region through design. So local designers, architecture, graphic design. Our definition of design is very broad. We have the Design Festival in April, tied to Tijuana Design Week. We have the Design Experience in September, tied to San Diego Design Week. And then we have 3 closing events in November. And that creates a framework for other partners to add value and to add their programming to what we're doing. So the American Institute of Architects, the Urban Land Institute, AIGA, the WOW Festival, the Consulate of Mexico in San Diego, Vanguard Culture, Insight, Tijuana Innovadora, C3, all these groups and all these voices that have been working in this region for decades will have a space for this very rich history and activities that we have in our region to be part of World Design Capital. So these are some examples of and pictures of things that have happened in the signing ceremony in Seoul 2010, Taipei in 2016, Mexico City in 2018. And as I mentioned before, our signing ceremony will be here at Park and Market at the end of May. So what happens there is that we have the mayor of San Diego, the mayor of Tijuana, the president of the World Design Organization, and the chancellor of UCSD, along with our organizing partners, signing a symbolic document for our commitment to design a better future for our region. And, it's a media opportunity and all the stakeholders, and we get to celebrate the amazing task that a fantastic group of people did over the pandemic and over years, really. This program took 7 years to bring home and to actually obtain the designation. And we're celebrating them. We're honoring that group of people, the Design Forward Alliance, Don Norman, Michelle Morris, and everyone that was involved in that process to make this a reality. This is an image of the Design Festival in France in 2020. As you can see by the face mask, they were in the middle of the pandemic, so they had to shift most of their programming to online, to digital, to virtual. This is the first World Design Capital in Torino in 2008. And this is a project that AIGA San Diego Tijuana is working on. Maylin Levine and Ron Miriello have this amazing project where they are telling the story of our region through design. And all these images represent one of these stories or one of these moments or one of these products that talk about our region. Then we have the Design Spotlight. This is what Helsinki did in 2012. They did more of an awards ceremony, and we're trying to rethink that and reimagine what that can look like. We have a design policy conference that's planned for November of 2024. This is what they did in Torino. So in this event, we have policymakers, mayors, chief design officers from around the world come here so that we can talk about best practices, innovation, and how designing public policy can have a very powerful impact in the life of our cities. Once design is included in public policy, then the result is better public spaces, better infrastructure, better transportation, etc. There's another event that we organize in November of next year, which is the Network of Cities meeting. And this is where we host the past world design capitals that you saw in that map. And they come here to tell us what their experience is, what they did in their cities, and what we can learn from them. This is a picture that was taken at the Network of Cities meeting in Valencia, and where we heard from many of the cities that were there, including Torino and Helsinki. And the story of Helsinki is particularly interesting because that's where we learned that World Design Capital can be just the beginning. So Helsinki has they're in a position where they can look back at 10 years of things that have happened since they were World Design Capital. We are a year before we begin, but we are hoping to have a similar story to tell in 10, in 15, and 20 years. One of the main things that I think Helsinki achieved was the insertion of a chief design officer in City Hall. So what that means is, again, design as a powerful tool for transformation is inserted in every decision that the city makes, resulting in better cities. And then finally, we have the convocation ceremony, which is where we hand off the torch, if I compare this to the Olympic Games, to the next host city or region. So whoever gets designated World Design Capital 2026, we will also host in San Diego and Tijuana. And we're hoping that this convocation ceremony will take place at the Salk Institute, which we think is a magical space that speaks of design, speaks about the nature of this region, about our connection to the ocean and to nature, and also about the collaboration. If you know the story of Louis Kahn, an American architect, and Luis Barragan, a Mexican architect, working together on this project to make it a reality. There's other projects that are happening in 2024. One of them is an international jazz festival that will take place at the Rady Shell in San Diego. And then on a different day in Avenida Revolución in Tijuana. So we're showcasing design also through music and through every other arts and culture and creative activity that has to do with design that we can insert into our program. I just wanted to show you this slide because this is like a preview of our brand identity that we're working on with a designer who's actually from Tijuana and lives here in San Diego. So he kind of embodies this cross-border reality that this region lives. And what we were trying to communicate here is how we exist together and what do we have in common rather than what separates us. And the AN in Tijuana and San Diego that I had never seen before, I had never noticed that the words had these two letters in common. So we're paying a lot of attention to the words that we use, how we communicate, and how we express without words or without talking necessarily our essence. So this kind of organized chaos of Tijuana and San Diego is something that we're trying to communicate with what we do. And then something that we also learned in Valencia is the value of the legacy and planning for legacy now. What remains here after 2024? And there are already some very important projects happening in the region. Yesterday, I was at the groundbreaking for the Border to Baywalk Bikeway. This is a project where SANDAG is working on connecting our region better with these bike paths or bikeways that are going to connect the border of San Isidro to Tijuana to existing bike paths that would connect you all the way up to Point Loma. And on the Mexico side, we're working with the government of the city of Tijuana and also with the community in Tijuana to reactivate a bike lane that already exists and maybe even build or design and build a longer bikeway so that our two cities would be connected and you'd be able to ride your bike literally from one country to another in this cross-border bike loop. There's another project that Cordova Corporation is working on in partnership with SANDAG, which extends the San Diego trolley just one station. But that one station connects San Isidro to Tijuana. And that changes the dynamic of I work here at Park and Market, and I just ran into two people that work here who get up very early in the morning. Very early, I mean 3 in the morning, and it takes them 3 hours for them to cross the border, get into public transportation, and arrive at Park and Market to work here all day, and then go back and spend a significant part of their day traveling. This would change their lives, and this would reconnect our region, again, using design and design thinking to solve solutions. Another one of our partners, the Burnham Center for Community Advancement, is working on reimagining the future of Balboa Park. How can this cultural center and cultural heart for the region, even people that live in Tijuana or Ensenada or Mexicali, they come to Balboa Park for the museums, for the connection to nature. So we're paying attention to these projects. We're lending our platform for visibility, for communication, and also to make connections and partnerships that maybe would not exist if we as a community didn't pay attention and connect with each other. There's another project that is very interesting here in San Diego, which is the Civic Center Revitalization Project. There's a design group already working on what this could look like and how to best take advantage of these major projects in San Diego and Tijuana to design a better future. And that's the end of the presentation. It's very overall, it's very general, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I think it is really important to know what's going on as far as your project goes. I do have a couple questions, but first, do any of our members have questions for Carlos? Christine, you unmuted yourself.
Yes, Carlos, thank you so much. What a fascinating endeavor. Yeah, and I appreciate it very much. I have one simple question that brings up a lot of problems, right? What are you going to do to hide the wall?
What are we going to do to hide the wall?
Right.
So we cannot hide the wall. We need to talk about it, and we need to
Right.
talk about the implications. So one of the layers that we're using to organize the program is the historical timeline of the region. Okay. And how, and not just, our recent history, but, the history of planet Earth, and how this peninsula came to be, and how when the first human settlements were here in the region, the border didn't exist. It doesn't exist for the Kumeyaay. It exists, of course, as a political line that one day someone drew, and that decades ago you could still walk across. I have friends who are 40, 50 years old that when they were children, they would cross the beach in Playas de Tijuana and just go from one. So we were still connected in a more natural way. So this artificial wall that divides the community is something that we need to talk about. And we're addressing that through our partners, through Friendship Park, for example, and Jim Brown. We need to, rather than hide it, we need to shine a light on this, how can we be thinking of building 2 30-foot walls that disconnect our region, let alone, people evidently, but nature itself, you can't disconnect nature. Flora, fauna, the watersheds. We need to pay attention to how this region works as a bioregion. And that's why the connection to the natural world and sustainability and climate change is so important, because it teaches us that, the people that were here and that are still here, the Kumeyaay, etc., and that knowledge, that ancient knowledge of respecting the land, respecting the ocean, and understanding how the natural world works in this region, that wall makes no sense, in my opinion. But we need to shine a light on that and have conversations and talk about public policy. That's why the conversation is not only about, the design of buildings and objects. This is about the design of our lives in the end, and how we behave here in our region. So we're also understanding not just the physical reality of where we are. We also understand we live in a unique corner of the world, and those of us that live and work here understand that. But also that the moment that we're living as human beings on this planet after a pandemic that is hopefully allowing us to rethink and reimagine the future in different ways, and take a look at our habits and our behaviors, including the building of that wall, and what that means, that man-made line of separation that's artificial. How do we rethink that, and how do we think of ways to better, we're not naive, we're not going to tear down that wall anytime soon, but we can begin the conversation of rethinking how we can coexist as two politically independent countries, but that understand that this region is connected in much more meaningful ways than that. So anyway, I could go on and on about this, but we need to not hide it, talk about it, and have the conversations. World Design Capital exists and lives, and that's why we're establishing these partnerships with the institutions that will remain, the university, the city governments, et cetera, so that conversation hopefully will have a positive impact and help us think about how we become this better version of ourselves, which includes rethinking that border wall. Sorry for the long answer, but Christine, but you touched on something that's very, that I see very clearly that we need to rethink.
That's great, no? But you would think that some government involvement should take place as well, no? To really
Yes, absolutely.
Positive policies. No?
Correct.
We have a question from Ram Katnell. How will local cultural organizations like museums, gardens, symphonies, educational institutions participate in the design conference?
Okay, so the short answer is in any way that they want, because our invitation is open, every voice is important, everyone is invited, and then the longer answer is I can give you examples of how that is happening. We are working with, excuse me, the Mingay Museum, for example. They're organizing San Diego Design Week. So we're working with them to insert their programming and their ideas into one of our events that will happen in September. And the broader conversation is also with the San Diego Museum of Art. They have a project that has to do with design and their future as a museum. And we're also working with the Natural History Museum and other institutions in Balboa Park, as well as the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership, to see how we partner with them, and that includes gardens and the park itself, to see how we work with them. Another example is the Museum of Contemporary Art in San Diego. They have moved all their programming to La Jolla, to their renovated space. So we are inserting programming and exhibitions into the downtown space that has been left empty. So we're working with the museum to insert design as a tool to think what that space will become in the future, because that's no longer going to be an exhibition space like it was as it was operating in the past. We're working with Secut in Tijuana to showcase a lot of what they're doing. They have a biennial that is going to be part of our program, and I could go on and on. The conversations are different with each institution. Some are more proactively getting engaged. Some are lending us space, venue, and they're all connecting to our network. So our network is a network of networks. We are connecting all these networks of these cultural institutions, so to see how we can mutually benefit to connect everything that we're doing in terms of programming and ideas, etc., and hopefully that more connected or better connected network in this region will be part of the legacy that that stays behind after 2024. Mm-hmm. Hi, David.
Good morning, Carla. I have a question. Is it going to be an opportunity for volunteers to help with the World Design Conference?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. This is how it's traditionally been done in other places. This is how Valencia did it. So absolutely, yes, there'll be many opportunities for volunteering. We're now in the planning stages, as you can imagine, in order to begin implementation in January of 2024. We need to submit the final calendar of events to the World Design Organization by the end of July. And then through our website and a newsletter that will we will begin to send out in the next few weeks, those opportunities will begin to be made public.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, we will definitely be looking for those who are heavy for our students. So I'll be touching base with either you or your assistant, Carlos, for those.
Thank you, Vanessa. Yes, absolutely, yes.
Of course. I did have a question, kind of similar to Christine's. What, if anything, or how is it being affected, homelessness in San Diego? I know that's a big issue. We did a tour of Park and Market, and I believe Mary Walshuk told us that there was an issue, for example, with homeless populations just along that street. So how does the World Design Capital here in San Diego plan to either deal with that or help with that population?
So we are, like the wall, these important issues cannot be tiptoed around or ignored. We need to talk about them and see how design can play a role in the conversation to maybe find better solutions. And the way we are thinking of addressing the issue of homelessness in San Diego is, and we actually wrote a letter to the mayor explaining this, is that we think that design is a really powerful tool that can help. And this network of thinkers around the world can also, is a network that we can connect to that adds another voice to a very complex program. So we're thinking of putting together a design for homelessness program, which is not to say that, we're going to design modules for people to sleep on the street. It's not about that. It's about thinking, it's about applying design thinking to the issue, that we learn what other cities around the world have done, that we also hear from local institutions that are addressing the issue and I'm not an expert, so I may be wrong, but my intuition or my appreciation is that these efforts are somehow disconnected. Not all of them, but if we bring them all to the table and we add this voice of design to the conversation, I honestly believe that we can help the city of San Diego set a direction to where this issue is addressed more efficient way. So we are thinking of implementing a design for homelessness program in partnership with the city of San Diego, especially if the city of San Diego assigns some funding to the program, which we are requesting in order to be able to do that.
Thank you. Christine, you had another question?
Design-wise, Carlos, how are you going to incorporate the historical part that you mentioned? And I'm thinking particularly about the Kumeyaay input. I mean, is there any, design-wise, is there any incorporation of them? And also politically speaking, I mean, will they have a voice in how you construct the design of these integrated cities?
Thank you, Christine. Yes, the invitation is open. What I have learned in these months at the job, I've been very curious about the knowledge of the Kumeyaay peoples. I've been reading and seeing documentaries, and we've been meeting with some of the groups that are already working with the Kumeyaay and others in indigenous tribes. It's very difficult for us to begin to establish a relationship of trust, because that takes a long time, and we don't have that time. So in order to connect with them, we're, for example, I'll give you two examples. We're working with Micah Parson at the Museum of Us, who has a very deep understanding and very strong relationships with the Kumeyaay. So through him, we're connecting to those voices, and also through Nan Renner at the Birch Aquarium, Scripps Birch Aquarium. She's also doing work with them, and also people at the Qualcomm Institute, and there's this new project called I forgot the name. Anyway, there's many groups that we are already connecting to find the most respectful and meaningful way to bring that voice into the program. So it's in process, but it's very, very important.
We actually have a student she graduated already in ethnic studies, and she has been working on both sides of the border on the Kumeyaay and education. I would like to contact her if you want to.
Please.
She can be an advisor to the project. No?
That would be wonderful. If you could make that connection, I would appreciate it very much, Christine.
Yeah, and the other person I'm thinking about is Max Parra. You know him?
I do not.
Max Parra is a colleague in the literature department, and he was the head of the Casa de California in Ciudad de Mexico. No?
I do not know Max, and I would love to talk to him.
Yeah, I will contact him for you and make.
So why is your Spanish so good, Catherine? Christine, sorry.
Porque nací en Alemania, pero crecí en el Perú.
Ah, muy bien. Entonces tu alemán también es muy bueno.
Más o menos, sí, por ahí vamos.
Muy bien.
Are there any other questions from members at this time? Carlos, do you have any kind of idea of where the World Design Capital 2026 might end up being then?
No,
or is it still?
We don't even know the who has submitted applications. I think I'm not sure if the application window is still open or if it has ended. Then the World Design Organization has their own internal discussions, evaluations, etc. We're not involved in that. And then it will be announced next year at some point. Or at the end of this year, maybe, because we were announced San Diego and Tijuana, the designation of San Diego Tijuana's World Design Capital 2024 was announced in November of 21. So if the process is similar, then maybe towards the end of this year, we will know who is designated World Design Capital 2026.
I see.
Carlos, could you put your email address in the chat, please?
Of course. Yes.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Carlos. I think this was a really interesting presentation, and I learned a lot. I'm sure our members online also learned a lot from you, and we look forward to connecting with you further in the future, either through those volunteer opportunities or something else. But thank you so much.
It would be my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, Vania, for the invitation, and pleasure to be here with all of you.
All right. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.